It's the Evening Rancor, the daily podcast from that guy who talks about stuff, John Ford. Any links mentioned on the show are available at johnford.radio. Today, we're coming to you direct from your mom's basement. Welcome to the Evening Rancor, the John Ford podcast.
Here's your friend again. Time to relax and forget each care. Just settle back in your easy chair. Here is entertainment for you. You'll find it so enjoyable too. So listen to all from beginning to end, 'cause your friend,
John Ford,
is here again.
Here we go again after a nice long weekend. It seemed longer than usual here in Austin, Texas. We got our first little taste of cold weather for the season as winter is coming. It's kind of cold and rainy here today, about 48 degrees and rainy. Now, those of you, if you're above the Mason-Dixon line, you'll say, oh, that ain't cold. Well, you know, for me it is. I'm a Florida boy, and I'm in Texas now. So, yeah, it's cold. 48 and rainy is, chilly. So I'm snuggled up here.
Do bundle up. It's awfully cold outside.
I was also thinking about over the weekend why I never started a podcast before, because people used to ask me, why didn't I do that? I mean, even people that I would meet, just like at a restaurant or something. Oh, what do you do for a living? I'd explain, and they'd say, oh, well, why don't you try podcasting? And there was always a couple of different reasons. One of the things that makes talk radio interesting is being able to take phone calls. It gives you that added extra dimension. Phone calls are sort of like the records for Top 40 radio. If you don't like the record that's on now, it's only going to be about 3 minutes long. The next one you might like better. So, what's coming up might be better. That isn't unless you just hate all forms of popular music, which is entirely possible in this day and age. The phone calls on talk radio give it that variety. You bang through the calls quickly, and as opposed to just one guy or two guys talking to each other and shooting off their big mouth, you have these calls coming in that you can play with and have fun. So that adds that dimension. You can't really do that with a podcast because, for one, it's recorded. How are you going to take live phone calls unless you're going to stream live? And even then, unless you've got this huge listener base, you're probably not going to get phone calls. It's going to be the same, what you would call chronic people calling over and over again. Uh-oh. And one of the other reasons I never did a podcast before is what I call the barrier to entry. Now, with broadcasting, you are doing just that. You are broadcasting. You have a transmitter, and it's going out there, and all the people have to do is just tune in, and you can get a cross-section of people from all over the place that could be listening to you. With podcasting, it's very much a narrow cast. That's why most podcasts are very, very narrow casted. Now, I don't have anything that one thing that I'm interested in enough. And even if I do, I'll quickly change what I'm interested in the next 15 minutes. I'll be very interested in something for a few days, and then I'll skip to something else. So that was another reason I never started doing it, is that you have this barrier to entry, where unless you're already famous, there's no reason for people to tune into your podcast. Unless you're cute, young, and attractive with a giant rear end. Giant rear end girl now has a podcast. We must tune in because she must have something interesting to say because she has a giant rear end.
Yuck.
So the barrier to entry is very high. It's not like, you're turning on a transmitter, transmitting to everyone, and they could find you by accident. They could still find you by accident doing a podcast, but, it's unlikely, which is why most people do that narrowcasting thing. I have a podcast about cheese. I have a podcast about amoebas. I have a podcast about, furniture from the 14th century. So most people do this very narrow thing, which I just don't have one thing that I'm interested in that much. And people are trying to find a way to make money off of it.
You have any free money for me?
And God bless you. I appreciate that you're trying to make money off of it. But that's not really what I'm doing here. I just, as I've mentioned before, this is just an excuse for me to shoot off my big mouth. Because for so many years, I used to have radio shows where I could shoot off my big mouth. So that's why I'm doing it. So I pay $20 a month for somebody to host my podcast. They distribute it for me, and I get to shoot off my big mouth. I have no infinite delusions of even finite grandeur with doing this thing.
That's right.
So those are the basic reasons I never did it before. And it's like I read my email, because I started doing this a few weeks ago, and now I just get like every email from all these podcast people
Here's how you make money on your podcast. Here's how to get more listeners on your podcast. Here's how to market your podcast. I was never very good at marketing myself to begin with. I think it's because I came from this long line of white middle-class Midwestern America where, son, you just don't make that much noise about yourself because you're not that great. You're not that big of a deal. Whereas a lot of people these days think they are great. I got a big rear end. I'm great. And, they make a lot of noise from themselves and they have no problem with self-promotion. And they'll go out there and self-promote the heck out of themselves or find ways to self-promote the heck out of themselves. Even what they're doing is just incredibly mediocre. I have no delusions that what I'm doing is anything beyond just, mediocre. Sometimes with flashes of interesting or never brilliance, but, might occasionally mildly humorous.
My ass.
So this is why I never tried doing this before. I don't have that self-promotion bug. I have no delusions that I'm going to make any money off of doing this. I'm not going to become the next big podcast guy like Joe Rogan or something like that. Although I've occasionally watched him and he's interesting, but he does that whole thing with the fighting and the wrestling, and I just don't care about that. I guess people do because they tune into him, and he does very well. And God bless him. I hope you make trillions and zillions of dollars. So there's the questions of why I hadn't done this before and why I'm doing it now. And the other big reason of why I'm doing it now is I have this really cool studio. I got this nice Neumann microphone. I got Pro Tools. I got all kinds of goodies. I got an Antelope digital audio recorder thing here connected to my Pro Tools. I got all this groovy stuff, so I might as well shoot my big mouth off. On the subject of self-promotion, this is going to sort of fit into that a little bit. Did you ever notice, have you ever noticed, everybody's an expert? It's interesting that everybody's an expert at something. And I think a lot of this started with the whole social media expert, which I always thought was kind of amusing. Oh, yeah, you know how to tweet and post on Facebook. You're a social media expert. Can you think of a more pointless job title in the entire known universe?
You got to be a Philadelphia lawyer, a diplomat, a psychologist, an expert on social behavior.
Somebody's been podcasting for a couple of months or a couple of years. All of a sudden, they're the expert. And they have all of this amazing information they want to pass along to you for a very small fee. Or really a lot of what it is it's just self-promotion of their own goods, of their own podcast, maybe. I find this in the voiceover world. I do voiceovers for a living. Don't make a ton of money. Some weeks are better than others, but I get by. And it's interesting that the experts in the voiceover field, I don't want to get off on a tangent about this, but a lot of it is just total self-promotion. So they'll tell you, hey, what you really got to do is you get out there and promote yourself. So promote yourself. That's how you're going to be successful. Promote yourself. So they put out these little videos or cheat sheets or whatever on, how to make a lot of money, how to do this, how to do that. And it's really nothing more than promoting themselves. And I'm sure it's true with the podcasting world too. I kind of see it there. Everybody's an expert, and here's how you get more. It's like the videos on how to get more promotion or how to get more listeners to your podcast are really nothing more than an advertisement for that person's podcast. You want to promote yourself? Here, I'm going to promote me, and that'll help you promote yourself. It's like this giant world of suck.
Immortal suck navel.
Just sucks you into this huge self-promotion machine, which is kind of really all the internet has become in a lot of ways. Look at LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn account. I don't really do much there. I got your basic resume up there. I have no delusions that anybody's going to hire me off there. Nobody's going to hire me anyways. I'm too damn old for them to hire me. It wouldn't matter if I'm the most brilliant guy in the world. They're not going to touch me at my age. Not that I'm 95 or anything, but, I'm over 60. Now, who the hell is going to hire me? Anybody going to hire me?
I'm ruined.
But LinkedIn is just this giant self-promotion suck. So I post these podcasts there, and occasionally people will say hi, and I'll say hi back, but I have no delusions that anything is going to come out of LinkedIn. It's a giant promotion suck machine. Really, all Facebook is a giant promotion suck machine, except you're promoting, but as opposed to, promoting your career, you're just promoting your smile or whatever. And Twitter is the same way, although it's just people yelling at each other. But everybody's an expert. Everybody's got, expert stuff on how to be this, how to be that, how to promote this, how to promote that. It gets really freaking old after a while. At least to me it does. So I just throw this podcast out there. If you're going to listen, God bless you. Maybe you'll find something interesting in it, because you never know what I'm going to talk about from day to day. And if you don't, well, go enjoy promoting your own internet suck machine.
I'm the happiest guy.
He's the luckiest guy.
'Cause I just bought a new Ford.
From a wonderful dealer.
Wow, what a dealer!
For a Ford or a fine used car.
After very careful consideration, sir, I've come to the conclusion that your system sucks.
JohnFord.radio